What's up guys? In today's video, I'm going to be telling you how you could start making electronic music in 2020. There's really not a whole lot of things you need to know. Just stick with me and I'll get you started. Make sure you guys follow me on Instagram and Facebook at Castor Music because I am going to be making more production videos and just music advice type videos. So if you want to stay up to date with everything, just follow me on there and you'll know every single time one of them drops. In today's day and age, when you probably think of electronic music, you probably think of like studios with walls and walls of synthesizers. And while those things are fun, it's actually not what you need to get started. You could essentially just get started with a computer, headphones, a DAW, and some samples that you've got. You kind of want to try this out and you want to blow a huge budget on it. You want to see if this is something that you're going to invest time into before you invest a lot of money into it. With that being said, there's a lot of inexpensive, great quality options out there right now where you could learn the basics and get comfortable with using a DAW without really compromising on sound quality. So today I'm going to kind of walk you through those. Once you figure out that this is something that you really like and want to pursue more and that you enjoy, then you can add more things to your workplace. I should probably mention that I take a very minimalistic approach to how I make music. Like I used to have, drum pads and a launch pad and all those kind of fun things to play with, but I found that they didn't really help with my productivity. Having all those like knobs and levels and things to play with are fun, but they always just kind of were distractions for me. And once I removed them, my mind was less cluttered and I was able to finish more songs. And that's really what I was trying to focus on. If you're just trying to like play with music and just kind of fiddle around, that's one thing. But if you're kind of trying to learn production and how to finish songs, I would recommend taking a more fundamental minimalist approach to it. So with that being said, these are the things that I would recommend for a beginner who wants to start getting involved in learning electronic music. All right, so the first thing you're going to need is a computer. And when you're first starting out, the probably obvious thing to do would be to just use whatever you have. You don't want to go out and buy a new computer just because you want to start learning production. However, if you are thinking about investing in a new computer, there are a few things that you're going to need to think about. The first thing would be Mac or PC. Now, it's not that big of a difference in the fact that all third-party or most third-party plugins work for both Mac and Windows. It's more of a budget consideration. You can definitely get more bang for your buck with Windows, but on the other hand, I would definitely say Mac is more reliable, and when you're dealing with a creative field, that's definitely important. You don't want to lose all your crap when you're in the middle of a session. Also, if you're thinking about getting a Thunderbolt-based audio interface, those are exclusive to Mac, so that's something to consider. The next thing to consider with a computer is, do you want a desktop or a laptop? Both of them have advantages. Obviously, the laptop is going to give you portability. So if you're taking sessions with other artists or you want to do a little recording, having a remote studio is definitely going to be advantageous to you. However, you are going to lose some CPU power. But in the beginning, your projects aren't going to be that complicated. So if you're just learning the basics, I really don't think you're going to be that worried about CPU power, but if you do progress quickly, that is going to be a problem. So you really just kind of need to make a decision on what kind of producer you're going to be. A more mobile one where you can kind of work on the go or as you travel, or a more studio-based producer, but you're going to have more power in that studio. The next thing you're going to want to consider is a DAW. A DAW is a digital audio workstation. No matter who you ask, that producer is going to tell you that the DAW that they work on is the best one. Everybody is very, very loyal to their choice, and honestly, they're all good. It kind of just depends on what you like and what your budget is when you're getting started. The three most popular for electronic music right now would probably be Ableton, Logic, and FL Studio. So those are the ones I'm going to focus on for today. There's also Pro Tools, which is definitely the standard for recording, but for in-the-box production for a beginner, I would definitely recommend the other three because they offer more in terms of workflow and creativity. So in short, Ableton's, in my opinion, probably the best for the creative process and facilitating workflow to get the idea out. Logic is probably the best overall, definitely the most balanced. The in-the-box plugins that you get with that program are absolutely incredible. Then FL is the cheapest, and it also offers lifetime updates. So once you buy it, you don't have to worry about purchasing updates like every other DAW. So that's pretty awesome. There's not really any restrictions when it comes to plugins. Pretty much all plugins will work with any DAW you set it up with. But one thing you might want to consider is Ableton, I think, is the most popular. I'm pretty sure they have like 20% of the overall market. So if you were planning collaborating with people, if you're both using the same digital audio workstation, the process is a lot easier than opposed to you have to bounce out stems. If you're working with someone who uses the same program that you do, you can literally just send them the file, and that goes a long way. So the next thing we're going to be talking about is samples. For samples, your best bet is definitely Splice. So Splice is a monthly subscription service where you can get to pick, I think it's for $10, you get 100 samples that you can pick. So sample pack curators and developers will upload their sample packs to Splice, and then you can go through and pick the exact samples you want. Previously, before Splice, you would have to buy a sample pack and just hope that there were good samples in it. And a lot of times that was just a waste of money. So you'll save a lot of money and a lot of headaches if you just use Splice. You can sort by BPM, genre, whatever else you need. It's just a lot easier, and it'll just save you a lot of time. So the next thing that I would suggest you get are headphones. I would advise you get headphones first before you invest in a great pair of studio monitors because, well, for a couple of reasons. One, you can hook headphones right into your computer without a audio interface, and also they're just a lot cheaper. Like I said, you want to keep it kind of inexpensive when you're first learning, so to make sure that's something you want to stick with. You could get a great set of headphones for $100 to $200, and honestly, the ones that I invested in when I was a beginner are the ones that I'm still using today. What you're looking for in a good set of studio headphones is that the mix is balanced. If you use something like Beats, yeah, they're going to sound great, but they're going to give you a distorted perception of your mix. Something like Beats has a really large boost to the low end, so it's going to sound a lot bassier than it actually is. So you want something that's just has a pretty balanced curve amongst this frequency response. So these are a few headphones that I would recommend for that $100 to $200 price range. Any of the products that I recommend here to you today, I'm just going to put in the description. I'll link them to Amazon or something, and you can go check them out and figure out what is going to work best for you. So the next things we're going to talk about are synth plugins. The one that I'd probably recommend you get is Serum for a couple of reasons. One, you can rent to own it on Splice. So that means you're going to basically pay a monthly fee until you've reached the traditional price of it, and then you're going to own it. So once you pay the full price, you don't have to keep paying a monthly subscription fee. So that's pretty awesome. It's also probably the most universally used for modern production. If you want like a more traditional sounding synth, I would probably go with Synth. I still use it all the time. It's very lightweight, and it still sounds great. So in addition to samples, Splice also offers presets. So both of those synths that I just recommended, you can go onto Splice and use your credits towards presets if you don't want to just use them towards samples. So that's awesome as well. Other synths you might want to consider, kind of depends on what kind of music you want to make, but that would be Avenger, Massive, Nexus, and Spire. Those are all pretty popular. So that's like the bare minimum for making electronic music. If you're just getting started, I would recommend you start there, and then you just build out your workspace. If you find out that it is something you like to do, then these are the next set of things that I would recommend you buy. So if you plan on getting monitors, the first thing you're going to need to get is an audio interface. An audio interface connects to your computer via USB or Thunderbolt, depending on what you want to use, and it sends signals to your monitors, and it also allows you to record. Again, this is not something that I would drop a ton of money on in the beginning, because realistically, you're not going to need a ton of inputs or outputs when you first start. Like, one or two is fine. Something in the Focusrite Scarlett series, like the 2i2 or the Solo, is going to be more than enough when you first start. So the next thing that I would recommend you get is a keyboard. Even if you can't play the piano, a lot of producers find it easier to write melodies and come up with ideas when you can actually touch something. They come in lots of different sizes, so the one that I would recommend is whatever fits your workspace, honestly. They're broken up in octaves, usually 24, 36, 48 keys. Some of them come with drum pads, some of them come with knobs. Again, I'm more into the minimalist approach, so mine is literally just a keyboard with a pitch wheel and a modulation wheel. That's it. Trying to keep it simple. I would recommend these two keyboards if you want a more minimalist approach, kind of like what I do. But if you want something that has a little bit more knobs and a few more things to tweak, I would recommend this one. Okay, so now we're gonna talk about monitors, and you're probably like, why is this so far down on your list? So for someone like me who's a professional music producer, yes, they're absolutely one of the most, if not the most important thing in my studio. That is without debate. However, I left them down on this list for a few reasons. The first is that they're just much more expensive. They're more of an investment piece. Like, you want to kind of get the right ones off the bat because you're going to be using them for years, as opposed to like something like an audio interface, which you can kind of just upgrade if you need more inputs. Secondly, when you start mixing on monitors, you are now susceptible to your room acoustics, and your reflections in your room are going to drastically affect what you're hearing. As opposed to if you're listening on headphones, it's pretty much going to sound the same no matter wherever you are. It's a much better idea to be mixing on headphones than it is to be mixing on monitors in an untreated room. So if you're not willing to at least invest some money into room treatment, then I would advise just sticking with the headphones, at least for the time being. So what you're looking for in monitors is essentially the same thing that you're looking for in headphones. You want a very neutral frequency response, something that's flat. I remember I used to have KRKs, and I would make records on them, and then I would go listen to them in the car thinking that they were going to sound the same way that they did on the speakers, and I would get into the car, I'm like, yo, this sounds terrible, because the KRKs were so hyped, especially in the low end, that I was anticipating the records sounding better than they actually were. The ones that I would recommend personally are the ones that I'm still using. Those are the Yamaha HS series. They come in, I have the 7s, I think there's an 8 and there's also a 5, so it depends on how much bass you want and how big your room is. They're not so expensive that you have to sell a kidney to get them, and they just honestly sound great. Like, they're great enough that I haven't upgraded mine over the years, and I'm honestly hesitant to upgrade them because I know exactly what they sound like and I know how to get my mixes to where I want them to be. So the last thing I'm going to cover is acoustic treatment. Like I said, if you're going to invest in monitors, you're going to need to invest in some kind of acoustic treatment. Now, acoustic treatment doesn't necessarily mean that you got to go out and buy wall panels like you see in the back here. Honestly, some simple additions to your room can make a world of difference, like laying a rug down or putting a couch into your studio, something like that, which is just going to suck up and deaden the sound, is going to go a long way. There's also things like sound blankets, which work really well, sound panels. If you do a quick search on YouTube, you'll notice that there's a ton of do-it-yourself projects for making panels. I know a bunch of my friends who've done that and they've turned out great. Then you can go on Amazon and there's just gigantic packages of foam that you can stick on your wall. Anything is going to make a difference, but make sure you do something, because if you're using a room that has a lot of reflections, it's going to do more harm than it does good. So whatever your budget is, I've left a few ideas in the description below. Check those out, see what'll best fit your room. So in order of importance, those are the things that I would probably recommend you get first. There's a ton of other stuff like microphones, subwoofers, bass traps, but you don't want to really overwhelm yourself when you're first getting started. It's like you're trying to climb a mountain, so just stick with the basic stuff and you'll get further faster. But if you have any questions or comments or anything, just let me know down in the comment section and I'd be happy to help you out. That's about it, guys. Stay safe out there.